Alright, so now we're on Warm Welcome, and Warm Welcome is actually one of the coolest levels. This level has a whole bunch of optimization regarding door fade-outs. It seems like a weird thing to say, but I'll be explaining it the best I can. There are going to be a couple parts in here that I'm probably going to cover multiple times just to show off different routes. Obviously, when the level starts, the first thing you want to do is head straight back. And the very first thing we're going to be doing right at the beginning of this level is we're going to be setting our clip warp over where the thief quest ends. There's a thief quest that you would normally have to do, but if you just go over here, right across this bridge, set your clip warp over where the thief quest ends, right across the other side of that bridge. And now we're going to be going and activating the thief quest and actually activating the thief to move and whatnot. And what we're going to be doing is, as soon as the thief quest is active, I'm going to be going and warping to that position. If you've run the super old any percent or the end trigger Warm Welcome, you probably recognize this part of the route. But we're going to go and we're going to just trigger the thief to move. We're going to do about 9 jumps here before we drop down and warp. Just like that. You should get warped to... Never mind, I somehow died at that. I wasn't holding quite the correct angle for that warp. There is actually an alternate clip warp that you can use, which is considerably slower. It is over here. You can actually get stuck in that little wall down there. I'll actually show that off. This one you can use if you're bad at the other one, but you can kind of just jump into this wall right here to get stuck.
Better hurry or he'll get away.
Now what happens is, we generally would have to wait all the way over here for the thief quest to end. In a super old any percent route, we would do a trick called the save jump. However, the save jump is completely irrelevant because it doesn't actually save us any time. So instead of doing the save jump, I'm actually going to go and do something else that's still going to save me time. And it's regarding keys. You might have noticed that I definitely do not have enough keys. I'm short 1 key for this stage. Luckily, there is 1 extra key located in this stage. It happens to be right over here, near where you start the thief quest, actually. So, what I generally do is I warp to the end of the thief quest, and then use the time during the thief quest to run and grab that key. Now, if you want to, you can be a real show-off and hold your clip warp again all the way back at the beginning of the thief quest, so you can just warp back to it. However, as long as you make it back before the end of the thief quest, you don't really lose any time anyway. I'm going to go ahead and head back in here. So there we go. Now is going to be the part that requires quite a bit of explaining, so I'm going to go ahead and make an extra save here, so I can actually explain this well. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is, there's 2 different ways to do this next part. There's actually 3 different ways to do this next part. And I'll show all of them off. I'll first show off the absolute slowest version, and then I'll show off the absolute fastest version.
Time to see what's inside.
The slowest way to do this method is to interact with this door right here. Basically, what you want to do is you want to trigger this area in here, but you also want to have the door be fading out. And the slowest way to do that is to enter this area. After the loading screen, skip this cutscene right here. Which can really, really easily kill you if you don't do it with the correct timing. Which is why I do not prefer that method at all. But I did say that I would attempt to show it off. I've never actually been able to pull off that method. The slightly faster version of that method, or the considerably faster version of that method, actually, is to, go and hit the door and then enter that area and skip the cutscene before you hit the load screen. So I'll show that off this time. It looks something like this. You interact with the door, you go in here, you skip the cutscene before the load trigger happens. And if you do that, you can see, you still manage to pull that off successfully. And you get brought to this area. Now there is, one slightly faster version of that, which I'll show off now. And it is potentially the most convoluted version of the strat, but, it definitely saves a little bit of time. The way that the final version works is, you might notice that Bard was standing directly outside of the area when I faded in. Now, you can actually interact with that Bard, and if you do interact with him, you'll get warped to in front of the cider house, where the other version of Bard is standing.
This is the warehouse. Time to see what's inside.
Now, if you interact with the cider house door too early after that, you'll actually get warped back outside of the cider house. But, if you wait a couple seconds, interact with the cider house, and haven't completely loaded into the cider house when Bard actually talks to you, because the cutscene will still trigger no matter what. So the fastest way to do it is to interact with this door, hit this trigger over here, skip the cutscene before the door load fades, and then after you load in, interact with Bard outside, get warped in front of the cider house, wait a couple seconds, interact with the cider house door, and not quite load fully into the cider house before Bard triggers his cutscene that is inevitably going to be triggered. And I'll show that all off right now. It is, like I said, the most convoluted way to do the strat. As you can see, that brings me to, generally in front of the cider house, but I didn't quite pull it off with the right timing that time. But if you do pull it off with the right timing, you'll generally get warped right in front of the cider house. Now, the most convoluted thing about that whole strat is, and I know I'm dying once again to explain this same strat, but the most convoluted thing about the entire strat is that during that whole time, we are also going to be holding a clip warp. So during that entire sequence of events, you also have to be jumping. So I'll show that off this time. We're going to be setting our clip warp about here, just on our way to the door, so I just generally run a little bit.
Time to see what's inside.
Obviously, jump through the entire door transition. Jump here when you interact with the door. Enter the area, skip the cutscene. And I'll attempt to show off the fastest version this time. Didn't get it, whatever. Didn't quite get it, whatever. This is still the second fastest version. But once you've done all that, obviously, still holding a clip warp, entering the cider house. Still holding your clip warp when going into the cider house, but what we want to do now is once we're in the cider house, we're going to be climbing up onto this counter right here, talking to this guy and only this guy, and then heading to this corner of the cider house. From here, you want to jump into this corner right here, into the corner of the window kind of, and hold the joystick about just into the window, and you should get warped all the way back to here. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be jumping to this little boat, talking to this guy whose name is Renar, and we're going to be entering this warehouse over here, which is the most annoying warehouse, honestly, in the whole game. The easiest way I've found to get up to the warehouse, I know a lot of people like to navigate through here, through this little tunnel, and head straight to the door. However, the way I prefer doing it is, when you're coming from Renar, you can kind of just grab these ropes right here and use those to hop straight over. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be setting my clip warp about here, just outside of the cider house. So obviously, just make sure you jump again before you interact with the door. Set your clip warp is definitely set outside and is not getting set inside at all. This poison gas, the very easiest way to get through that first area is to just, as soon as you enter, run straight through that left side, because there shouldn't be any gas that you're having to deal with on the left side. The easiest way to get through this area is to kind of just hug the left side of the boxes, and then once you get here, just do a long jump as far to the left as you can, and you should make it through with only about that much damage. Now, the easiest way to get through here is to hop onto these little boards, hop from here onto this little ledge onto the box, and then just use that to hop up and climb up onto the boxes. From here, we're going to be navigating just kind of alongside these boxes. Over to the right now. We're going to be climbing up these boards, which can be really annoying to actually get up. Once they're up onto this platform, we actually want to turn around, and we want to kind of do a catwalk, or cat jump, I guess, because once again, I'm still holding my clip warp. But we want to do that all the way over to here. Interact with this switch right here. We're going to just be long jumping into here and pressing start, skip a cutscene, and then obviously immediately pressing A again. Right here, we're going to just be dropping off of this ledge right here. You don't want to slide off the ledge because I've encountered more times than I'd like to admit a glitch called a slide glitch. More specifically, a slide crash, which I really don't like talking about slide crash because it's not something that I can explain. But the easiest way to get off here is just to hop off and re-grab the ledge like that. If you want, you can try to slide off the ledge, but you are likely to cause a slide glitch or a slide crash if you do that. But obviously, just grab the ledge, press B to drop down, and you should land about right here without taking any damage. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into here, clip into this area as best I can, and then jump out and get stuck in this wall. You might not get stuck perfectly the first time. If you don't, you kind of just have to hop around a little bit until you get stuck. And if you've done all that right, you should get warped directly back outside. If you don't immediately hit that cutscene trigger, that's fine. You kind of just want to walk around a little bit until you do hit the cutscene trigger. Now, out here, there is a little bit of a weird thing that happens where you don't want to immediately start heading to the cider house, because for some reason, halfway through the intended cutscene, you get warped back in front of Bard. So if you head back toward the cider house, you will get warped back to Bard, and if you're moving fast enough, there's a good chance that you'll just fall into the pit and potentially die, because all of the rooms that we've entered and not properly exited, such as the cider house, are still loaded down there. Now, because the cider house is still loaded, we're not going to actually encounter the load trigger that we would normally encounter when entering the cider house. Now, right here, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a time saver where I'm going to be setting my clip warp outside of the cider house, just like that, as I enter the cider house, and I'm going to be warping back out, which is going to save me time not only by dodging the load trigger, but also by just getting me outside a little bit faster. We're going to talk to this guy over here. And now, as soon as we've talked to him, we're going to clip warp back out of the house. The easiest way I found to do that is you don't even have to use the same window clip. You can kind of just clip warp off of his shoulder, like that. But that warps us right out here. We're going to be using the same clip warp position later. So I'm going to be holding it still as I head this way into this room over here. We're going to be climbing these stairs over here, which can be fairly annoying when trying to hold your clip warp. But obviously, just interact with the chest just like that. And now you can clip warp off of these pots right here if you do it right. You do have to hold the joystick for this one. You can't release. Otherwise, you'll generally get unstuck. Come on, dude. There we go. But yeah, obviously, you get warped back in front of the cider house. We're not really going to be doing any more clip warping in the level. We're going to go ahead and talk to this guy, and now we're going to be doing another one of those door fade-out tricks. This guy right here really wants to give us a bottle, but obviously it loses time to walk all the way over to him and grab the bottle, and then walk all the way over to the door. So what we can do instead is talk to the door, and then talk to the guy and skip his cutscene as we phase out, which gets us that bottle just a little bit earlier. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be heading to each of these doors that has this, purple dragon on it. These are really nice because these first two rooms, what you can do is you can find the gold chest in the room, interact with the door, and then interact with the gold chest. And obviously save a little bit of time there by, obviously you've triggered the door fade out a little bit earlier than intended. We can do the same thing with the second room, which is right over here. This one, I believe the chest is on the opposite side of the room. Yep, right there. The third room, unfortunately, we can't do that with. And the third room, in theory, we could, like, hold our clip warp back to the cider house. The only problem is, from the inside of this third room, not only is the inside of the cider house unloaded, but the door to the cider house from the outside is also unloaded. So warping back from this third area won't actually do us any good. So all we can really do here is go in, grab the chest, and go back outside. And then navigate our way back to the cider house.
Then that to a young boy raised on tales of adventure.
Now here's where we're going to be encountering a bit more difficult stuff. This is I've been known to say that this coming up here in a minute is the most difficult skip in the game. This first part is not it at all. This first part is actually quite easy. Now if you can't pull off the bottle skip somehow, the optimal time to grab the bottle would actually be right now. Just walk over to him, talk to him, and grab the bottle now. But, obviously, if you've already done that, you should have all 5 bottles, including this one here. The order to the bottles, because you need to put them in a specific order, is yellow, blue, red, black, purple. If you can't remember the order, you can always talk to this guy up here to, get vague hints on what the order is.
The combination escapes me in memory.
I have no interest in hearing his hints right now. But anyway, once you put the bottles in the right order, you'll notice that this area behind you opens up. We're going to be abusing this a little bit because the trigger that we need to hit for the quest is actually right at the bottom of this rope. So what we can do is, instead of actually hitting that trigger the proper way, which would normally be to just drop down here, we can actually just navigate around to the other side, face back this direction, climb down to the bottom of the rope, and then climb back up and hit the trigger. So obviously the easiest way to do that is to jump over to this side, turn around, climb to the bottom of the rope, climb back up a little bit, and then jump up. There's a couple different ways you can set that up. If you're really careful, you can wander around the edge like this and do the same thing. And obviously, generally, I wouldn't actually recommend jumping onto the rope because that can cause you to get more height than you would like. So just walk off onto the rope. That's the easiest way to do it. But you just kind of climb down until you hit that quest trigger, and you'll hear the noise and see the little book on the side of the screen to tell you that you've done that. But then you just climb back up, hop up here, and you've successfully completed the quest. Now, what the game intends for you to do after that is the game intends for you to go and solve a whole bunch of puzzles to get to the next room. None of those puzzles are actual quests, which is really convenient for us. Well, convenient. You'll see what I mean here in a second. But, obviously, I'm actually going to be saving in both of these slots for my own safety. What we're going to do now is, like I said, the hardest trick in the game, potentially. We're going to be doing a little bit of a boost off these boxes. You can see if you jump from over here, you hit a little bit of an invisible ceiling, but if you jump from farther back, you don't hit that same ceiling. What you want to do is you want to jump, and once you're in the air, you want to start holding forward. But you want to jump, hold forward, and do a jump attack at the peak of your height to make it up onto this invisible ceiling. Which is super convenient for us, because conveniently, this invisible ceiling actually blocks off a really nice way of getting out of bounds, which is right here at this window. If you just long jump through the left side right there, you can get out of bounds like that. Now, if we do a long jump from here, you can notice there's a room down there. That room is actually the final room that we need to get to. And you might notice also there is a save pedestal in that room. I'll attempt to show it off again. There we go. Showed off the save pedestal perfectly. Didn't intend to die, but it does work. Now, if you're clever, you might be thinking to yourself, could we potentially jump down there and save before we die? And the answer is, yes, we can. It's just very, very difficult. I believe you have a maximum of 2 frames to actually save at that pedestal. So generally, the way that I set this up is, I stand about here, so I'm kind of lined up with this corner right here. I face directly into this little part of the mountain, kind of where this peak is, right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to long jump, and I'm just going to start mashing B, in the hopes that I will manage to interact with that save pedestal without dying. I do think I got it that time. There are a couple ways to tell if you didn't get it, but all of them are after you've actually saved. If I save and then the game restarts or if I save and then upon saving I notice that my health is ticking down, that means I've done it successfully. If I save and upon the save ending, I notice that my health is immediately at 0 already, like not ticking down, just completely blatantly at 0. That means that I've failed the skip. Now, another important thing to note is you might notice that I've actually gone for the side of the save pedestal. That gives me, I believe, another frame or 2 to save. If you go from the top of the save pedestal, you almost assuredly will fail the trick. So you definitely want to go toward the side of the save pedestal. But as you can see, if you looked over at the top left of my screen, you can see the health was still ticking down. It wasn't completely at gray yet. If you are completely at gray, you're going to have to reload from before you do that trick, because you've failed it, and the only way to continue is to reload a save done before that trick. What we're going to do now is we're going to enter this area. There are some comedic cutscenes here where invisible goblins and thieves talk to each other. There are 3 of them, and I would skip all 3 of them before you head down to the arrow. But what we're going to do is we're just going to do exactly that, head down to the arrow. We don't have to worry about the goblins and thieves catching us yet because they're not actually here. We're going to climb up here, and immediately upon climbing up here, there's this cutscene that triggers. And magically, now that we're up here, all of these goblins and thieves have respawned. If you get too close to the ground now, they will catch you whether you have the ring on or not, whether you touch them or not. They will catch you if you get too close to the floor. Luckily, we only have to make it all the way over here to this little room. And it's really easy to do that. All we have to do is just once again hug this wall and kind of just navigate our way over here. Now, there is a pretty long unskippable cutscene right here.
Get into that warehouse, men. You wait here, Bilbo. The town guard will finish this.
But once this cutscene is done, all you have to do is go straight to Bard and talk to him to end the level.
Be so useful. Good work,
which I'll show off right here.
I found the black arrow.
This cutscene is humorous. The black arrow actually clips through his left hand.
It was forged in the lonely mountain. I am in your debt. Come visit me outside the Great Hall when you're.
But obviously, yeah, Bard is just right here, so we can just hop over the thing and talk to him again, skip the cutscene, and we are completely done with Warm Welcome, which, like I already said, is probably the hardest skip in the game, is that save jump at the end of Warm Welcome. Now, again, that's really all there is to that level, and this has taken me the longest of any level to actually go through. Surprisingly, this is not the longest level in the run. That attribute goes to a level that is coming up here pretty quickly. It's really nice also that we have a whole 385 coins, considering we don't have to buy anything for the rest of the run. I'll go ahead and just end the level. And obviously, I'm going to be covering inside information in the next video, so I'll see you guys then.